Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Stories That Inspire Us. My name is Janice Malillo, your host. And of course, as always, I am broadcasting as well through the, the Wisdom Audio app. I am so excited to be here with today's guest. And at the end of the podcast, I had just mentioned that I had an emergency trip to Philly, but toward the end of the podcast, I'll explain a little bit about that because I think it kind of goes with the theme of why I specifically started Stories. Now, my guest today, wow, let me just say that when her guest registration came through and for the Stories podcast, and I read her bio, I was taken aback for a moment, and I'll explain that very simply. When someone shares their story in a very real, personal, authentic version with only the catalyst to share their story to inspire others, I was blown away. She is a sweetheart. And by the way, she's dressed for summer. And of course, I am buckled up here in the Northeast. But without further ado, I want to welcome to the Stories podcast, the amazing Mandy Alexis. Thank you so much for being here, Mandy.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Now, you shared some very personal things. You are I guess it would be a surviving cocaine addict, and you've had sobriety for quite a long time. And as we know, there's so many different addictions that not only affect the person who is going through it, but their families as well. Can you share your story from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So I was a functioning cocaine addict for 16 years. I'm now about 3.5 years clean. However, my relationship with drugs started way before my addiction to the cocaine. When I was 12, it was the first time I tried marijuana. And then by 14, 15, I was using acid and mushrooms as well as drinking, started around that age. And then 16, 17, we were experimenting with like MDMA and ecstasy, all while still like carrying on with the other drugs as well as the booze. And then, so then 19 came around, started going to the bars and all that stuff. And yeah, I tried cocaine, and then that just stuck with me until 3.5 years ago. So it's pretty wild and intense to me to think that basically my entire life I was using or some sort of substance, and that only 3.5 years of my life I've been like sober and or clean. And the version I feel right now feels like I've been here longer than that last version. Like it feels so long ago. It seems so kind of faded, right? Like it's really cool to me that like how much an individual can change as long as they're, dedicated to their self growth and putting in the work. Like and going through the process of everything that comes with getting off the drugs, right? So yeah, it was it's a very wild experience, very interesting, very hard, very like, wow, I can't believe that was my life for so long, right? But basically, like, I want to be sharing my story to show people that no matter what or where you are in life or how long you've been living a certain way, we all have like the power within to make those changes that we desire.
That's pretty powerful what you just said. We all have the power within.
Yeah, I strongly believe that we do, right? Like we get conditioned and, we become a certain way after being a certain way for so many years based on a number of things, obviously, like how we grew up, our peers, what we watch on TV, the music we listen to, like everything plays a factor on, how we end up. But there's a certain time where I feel, we need to kind of step back and decide if this is who we want to be based, so and then it's up to us to get through those layers of whatever it is that we aren't satisfied with in our lives about who we are or how we're living.
Wow. So when you say to ask yourself the question, is this who we want to be? Was it just at one point in time where you got to the point where I've had enough? And is this really who I want to be? Do you think that for some, it's a progression of that?
Yeah, it was definitely a progression for me as well. And I think that because we go through layers of of healing and breaking down like parts of us. And for me, it wasn't just a one and done where I was like, okay, this is it. Like I had made a decision and then would start working on myself, and I would fumble back. And then I would be like, refocus and be like, nope, like I held myself accountable, and then would, analyze too, like what decisions I was making, like why did I fumble back? Who was I with? What setting was I in? And really, hold myself accountable and take note of what changes I needed to make and wanted to make to become the version of myself that I felt I was always meant to be. Right. But with that said, like I also, because of the journey that I did have and where I am now, like I do have this story to share, and these experiences and these healing modalities that I can share with the world. And I am grateful for that, right? I'm very grateful that I was able to shift myself and transition to who I am today, and like help people see that like we can make a difference, within ourselves, and then within the energy we spread to the universe, right?
That is so true. And I just want to back up a tad, because as we all know, there are influences. And as you were pointing it out at one point, keeping yourself accountable, and you were asking yourself some pretty tough questions. Who am I hanging around with? Is this person perhaps a bad influence for me? Like you really stepped up to the plate to hold yourself accountable. And I think in that respect, when you take a hard look at yourself, that within itself is also a learning curve, a learning experience. Because as you also mentioned, to shift and transition, that is part of the process. Would you say that when you started your journey with addiction, you had mentioned when you were 12, you started with weed. Do you think that that was like the gateway or the segue, I would assume, to what you went through?
Well, to be honest, I feel like the gateway would have been my childhood traumas, right? Like I wouldn't have admitted this when I was, or not admitted or realized this as a kid, but now, going through what I did and looking at myself and looking at the patterns and who I am now, and, learning about traumas and healing my own traumas, like, I could say that I was trying to escape something. Like at the time, I was experimenting and, altering my reality, but why did I feel I needed to alter it so much and for so long and like consistently, right? Like, my father was an alcoholic. He was in and out of our lives and went like, he was, I saw he was never like violent towards me, but he was an angry man. So he was, breaking mirrors and smashing dishes and very angry, right? So when you are seeing that as a small child, like it gets ingrained in you. So I think that was my gateway, trying to feel something maybe different that I wasn't feeling from him, right? And in a sense, trying to escape whatever I was feeling inside, because not knowing how to really deal with those emotions as a small child.
Right. And those traumas, I think, in many ways are something that we never escape, but we learn how to live with them. And from what I'm listening, your childhood trauma was the segue which led you on that path. But now here you are today, and as you mentioned, 3.5 months sober or clean.
Years.
I'm sorry, my apologies for that. Years. That's pretty darn significant, and I want to say congratulations to that, because
Thank you.
that's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it was hard work. And, you know, there were times in the first year where I was like, you know, because my brain was rebuilding, my body was trying to reproduce like serotonins and like dopamine that like I had been feeding myself through these drugs for years. So like your body stops producing these natural like chemicals for you because you're giving it to yourself, right? And even the rebuilding of my brain, like sometimes like it would feel like my mind was like on fire, my brain was on fire. And I remember moments when I was like, why am I stopping when I'm still feeling this way? Like that, you know, like, and I just, you know, I actually did some research too, or a lot of research around the addiction and what was going to happen afterwards. So you know, I educated myself knowing that this would pass, right? And you know that obviously helped, because if you think like, oh well, I'm just gonna feel like this anyways, might as well just keep down that path, like unless you know that it's going to get better. And that's also, you know, why I want to share my story, just telling people like it will suck, it will be hard, it will be painful, like emotionally and physically, but it will pass. And then what you get afterwards is beautiful. At least I think so. And but it's not even just about stopping the addiction. Doing the inner work, you know, is what's going to really like help you hold on to your sobriety, as well as feel a lot different, right? Like I feel a lot so much lighter now because I've worked through father wounds, and I've worked through other traumas, and I've worked through like how my mind was operating with like limiting beliefs and my mindset, and, you know, step by step. Obviously I didn't do it all at once. Like I said, this has been a 3.5 year journey, but you start with one thing, and then you start with another, and you start with another. And before you know it, like it's like this beautiful being that you can become without all the pain and suffering and anxiety and depression, right?
Yeah, because the pain, the suffering, and the depression that goes along with that type of work as well, especially when we're doing that deep inner work, really is very jolting. I don't know how to describe it other than I think it's very jolting to have that reality discussion with yourself. So do you currently coach anyone toward a healthier, like similar to what you've been through? Or is that
I don't, no, I don't currently do that. Right now, I've just been very called to just be on these podcasts, share my story, you know, inspire people, share the steps I took and modalities that I use and continue to use. I do want to, in the future, in the near future, create retreats for people to come and learn about all these, you know, like wellness ways to help improve their life. Not necessarily for addicts, but just anyone who wants to, you know, feel less stress, or, you know, change their mindset, or just be more present. You know, like there's a lot of tools out there that can help us, you know, be more aligned with ourselves, that, you know, are you know, simple tools, but and if you combine them together, it can be very magical, right? So
wow. And if you don't mind me asking, what are some different modalities that perhaps maybe if you're feeling that stress or anxiety, or something pops up, and what is your go-to? Like, what do you use?
yeah, so I like breath work and meditations are like very powerful. And a lot of people believe that like your mind needs to be shut off completely to meditate, but it's actually more like recognizing the thoughts around you, like just being aware of them, and like our mind's gonna think, right? But it's about bringing yourself back to concentrating on your breathing, let's say, and just being aware of the thoughts, that alone will help us, be more in charge of what's going on up here. And simple things like when I'm feeling like a little like on edge, there's, the breathe in for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, release for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds. And you do that 5 times and it just regulates yourself. And so those simple tools where if you if you can't just sit down and meditate for a bit, just doing the breathing one before you're getting out of your car, or like while you're sitting at your desk, like things that you don't need necessarily like a big private space to do, but definitely like a lot of us breathe in the sense that we're like always scared or in fear mode type of thing, right? And so we're not actually getting the oxygen that our body needs. And so just if we're finding ourselves on edge, even just doing those simple breathing exercises will help calm us and bring us back into the moment.
Yeah, and those breathing exercises, I've done them myself, and they really are very centered for me. They're very calming, even in the midst of the craziness or whatever happens to be going around with us. Excuse me. Do you see yourself at some point writing a book? Because that just came to me.
Yeah, I've been asked a few times to write a book and like be part of a book. And I did start writing like my story and stuff. I haven't finished yet, but it is one of the things on my like list of stuff that I feel would be beneficial to put out into the universe, and also just help me like get it all down and out and stuff. So yeah, definitely something that has been on the radar.
And I just want to say this other thing too. I also see you on a TEDx stage.
Oh, well, thank you. I
Yeah.
actually very much want to stand up on stage and share my story. And I also, when I started my journey and continue to this day, and even before I became like decided to really stop, I listened to motivational speakers, and the way they made me feel, it was like I want to make people feel that way, right? Like they really did lift me up, and it was in different aspects too, like not only just changing my life from being an addict from not, but even in the sense of like when I was going through a bad breakup, like the pick you up and like keep going thing. And like I just think other people sharing their messages and other people rooting for other people is
Mhm.
so powerful and so important, because not everyone has that necessarily in their family or in their friends circles. And so to have these other people out there that are sharing their messages and helping uplift others, I think is very, very important for us to continue having, right?
Oh my gosh, I so agree with you. And I just saw very briefly out of the corner of my eye, and I do want to recognize and say thank you again to all of our amazing listeners on the Wisdom Audio app. I know that somebody came up on stage, and I do apologize. I did not see that, but if someone would like to perhaps come up on stage, contribute to the conversation, or maybe even ask Mandy a question. I believe we have time for one person to come up, so please feel free to click that button. Mandy, anyone that that will be listening to this podcast and who hears us right now, what is one word of advice that you can offer somebody who's really going through, or maybe it's a family member going through a very rough time with addiction? What is one thing that you can offer to them as far as like a tip, and you had mentioned breathing exercises and meditation, but what is one thing for you that sticks out?
Well, I think it's important for everyone to like, to be gentle with themselves along the journey, but also be firm, right? So beating yourself up over your journey, if you're not progressing, like let's say you stumble back, like, to love yourself still, right? And for anybody who's watching someone and suffering from the effects of the family member, their friends' addictions, like I think it's important too for those people to value those feelings and not suppress them, and also be there for their family members to when they're ready for the help, right? Like we all know you can't change someone if they don't want to be to change. And like I have like alcoholic friends and family, and you have to be able to be supportive to them, but also to know when to step back and put up your boundaries of how their lifestyle may be affecting you in a negative way, right? So finding that balance of boundary and love when it comes to dealing with the people with addictions, and then also like when you're dealing with your own addiction, like finding the love for yourself, but also the boundary of how firm you're going to be with yourself on holding yourself accountable. I hope that makes sense.
Oh my God, 100%. And you really hit the nail on the head, because when we put up those boundaries are there for a reason. And I think sometimes we kind of disregard them, but those are the times when we need to lean into them.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, it's not always like as easy but you practicing them more and more, like you'll get stronger at these boundaries. And I do believe that you can have these boundaries and still be a loving support system for someone or for yourself, right? And it's trial and error. Like it's going to take time to find that balance for yourself. Like it's all part of the process. But as long as you are putting these things into place and practicing them when you can, and recognizing when you're not, like that's all part of it, right?
Right, exactly. And that so rings true, specifically for my situation. My son has post-traumatic epilepsy with a traumatic brain injury. And I have to remember that even through all the craziness, because there's always something going on, right? That the self-care part of it is like, okay, I need to step back a moment, and what do I need right now in this moment? So, and that's where those boundaries come in, and the self-care. Oh my gosh. Mandy, where can our viewers and listeners get in contact with you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so it's Mandy Alexis Motivation. I also create motivational art, which was part of my journey. Actually, it was one of the things that I discovered a talent for when I was trying to discover new things to do. So I sell, canvases and wood prints, journals, mugs, all with pictures I've taken. And I've come up with the motivational sayings to like match the picture. So that's at mandyalexismotivation.ca. So it's always, helpful to have those little sayings around to keep you inspired, right? So if people want to check that out. Yeah.
And of course, I will make sure all that information gets in our show notes. I really am I'm so inspired by your story, from where you were to where you are today. It wasn't just a hop, skip, and a jump. I'm sure there was many potholes along the way. And your willingness to share your story in such a very authentic manner, but really be true to your boundaries and wanting to share that in such a way to inspire others, I think is so very beautiful on so many different levels. So I want to thank you for your candor, your honesty. And I know that my viewers and listeners are going to be so inspired by your story. I hope that you will definitely consider coming back to the Stories podcast, because I think that you are just such a gem. I can't wait to see where your journey takes you. I can't wait to read your book. Can't wait to see you on that TEDx stage. You're truly you are what Stories is all about. And I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you so much. All that was very sweet, and it feels nice to hear that you see those things in me. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, you are so welcome. And of course, just a quick update, as I mentioned at the, excuse me, at the beginning of the podcast, because I've been always very real and authentic with my stories podcast and my son's journey. This past Friday, which was October 21st, my son's phone, I received a call from my son's phone, and always love hearing my son's voice. And mama always loves to hear her son. And I always get excited when he calls. And we just have these amazing conversations. But the voice on the other end was not my son. They said, is this Ryan's mom? And my heart sank. Ryan had another, excuse me, epileptic seizure and ended up in the neuro ICU. So I had to make an emergency trip. I got back late yesterday, and it's been a whirlwind. It's been a very emotional whirlwind, not only for Ryan, but for myself as his mom and extended family and friends. So I just want you to know that he's okay. We have a lot of other things to work on. He has more testing to go through, and it's a process. It really is. But this is what Stories is all about. I was inspired by my son's journey on one of the many trips coming back from Philly, when he said to me, you got to continue to take care of yourself. And I believe I've told that story 1,000 times. I'll probably tell it 1,000 more. But Ryan is so right. He is the inspiration behind this podcast. And I know he frequently listens from time to time. And I just want him to know how much I love him and how proud I am of him. That he's really, he just inspires me. And on that note, thank you all so much. I'm going to do the quick sign off on wisdom. All my amazing listeners, I want to thank you as always. You are amazing. You know how much I love the Wisdom audio app. And check for this podcast, be uploaded probably later today or first thing tomorrow morning. As a result of what happened on Friday, I am a little bit behind on my processing, but I'll get there. Know that if you have a story to share, don't hesitate to reach out to me, because your story matters and somebody needs to hear it. Somebody needs to be inspired by your stories. My name is Janice, the host of Stories That Inspire Us. Today, I was inspired beyond measure by my amazing guest, Mandy Alexis. Signing off now on the Wisdom audio app. I'm bumbling a little bit with my words, a little tongue twisted here. I will see you again real soon. And thank you again. Bye for now. I want to again thank Mandy. These are the stories that inspire us. And just know, as you go forward, whatever your situation may be, it's okay to put those boundaries in. Don't forget your self-care, because you are what matters. Try the breath work. I know it's worked for me. And as Mandy shared, she does her breath work and of course, meditation, whatever works for you. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Mandy. And we will see you again real soon. Bye for now.
Bye.